These are the 5 films Wayne and Maureen O'Hara made together, ranked from their least successful collaboration to the masterpiece that won 2 Academy Awards and changed both their careers forever. 21 years separate the first from the last, from 1950 to 1971, and Duke and Maureen created one of cinema's most powerful on-screen partnerships during that time. Audiences believed they were married in real life because their chemistry was so convincing, but they weren't married at all. What they shared was something Hollywood rarely produces, a friendship that Duke himself said was unlike any other woman in his life. Today we're counting down all 5 collaborations, revealing which film almost nobody remembers, which one became their biggest box office hit, and why the greatest of them all only happened because of a deal with a stubborn studio boss who called it a silly little Irish story that will never make a penny. You'll also discover what Maureen whispered in Duke's ear in the final scene of their masterpiece that shocked him so badly both stars took the secret to their graves. Before we get to the rankings, you need to understand how close this legendary partnership came to never happening at all. John Ford's house became the meeting place in 1941 when the director introduced Wayne and O'Hara for the first time. O'Hara had just worked with Ford on How Green Was My Valley, and Wayne had been Ford's leading man since Stagecoach in '39, so the introduction made perfect sense. Their friendship started immediately, but nearly a decade passed before they made their first film together. The holdup was John Ford's dream project, a film he'd been trying to make since reading Maurice Walsh's short story in 1933. Ford purchased the film rights for just $10 in 1936, but every studio in Hollywood rejected it. Republic Pictures president Herbert J. Yates summed up the industry attitude when he called it a silly little Irish story that will never make a penny. Ford finally got Yates to agree to finance The Quiet Man, but only under one condition that changed everything. Ford had to deliver a profitable Western first using the same stars, and that film became Rio Grande in 1950, launching the Wayne-O'Hara partnership. Without that deal, none of their 5 films would exist. Patrick Wayne explained their screen magic in simple terms. She was the only one who could stand up to my father, and stand toe-to-toe with my father, and match him in everything. Now let's rank their 5 films, starting from the bottom. Number 5. The Wings of Eagles. Coming in at number 5 is The Wings of Eagles, their most forgotten collaboration, and the only one not directed by John Ford that featured both stars in major roles. MGM released this biographical film February 22, 1957, telling the story of Commander Frank "Spig" Wade, a pioneering Navy aviator who broke speed records and won the 1923 Schneider Cup before suffering a devastating fall down a staircase that left him paralyzed. Wade's grueling rehabilitation and second career as a Hollywood screenwriter formed the film's emotional core, and the script he wrote included films like They Were Expendable, Test Pilot, and Ceiling Zero. Duke plays Spig Wade while Maureen plays his long-suffering wife Min, whose marriage crumbles under his obsessive career devotion. Dan Daly plays Wade's loyal friend Jughead Carson, and here's a detail that makes this film special for Ford fans. Ward Bond plays a character named John Dodge, a thinly disguised version of John Ford himself, using Ford's own pipe, hat, cane, and Oscar statuettes as props. Ford didn't want to make this picture and said so directly. "I didn't want to do that picture because Spig was a great pal of mine, but I didn't want anybody else to make it." Wayne had personally known the real Wade during the filming of They Were Expendable back in '45, and he even went without his toupee for scenes depicting the older Wade. Production costs reached $2.644 million, and the film earned $2.3 million domestically plus $1.35 million internationally, yielding an $804,000 profit. Not bad numbers, but not spectacular either. Critics split down the middle on the film's quality. Ruth Waterbury in the Los Angeles Examiner praised how the film does a wonderful thing for John Wayne. It lets him get under the skin of a real part and prove that he is very much more than the action star, but many found the tonal shifts between broad comedy and wrenching drama jarring. Matt Brunson called it perhaps the weakest of all John Ford-John Wayne collaborations. Rotten Tomatoes gives it just 33% based on only 6 reviews, and IMDb scores it 6.6 out of 10. So why does it rank last when it's not a bad film? Ford's grandson Dan Ford called it the most autobiographical of his grandfather's films, noting that Wade's story as a compulsive worker, a man of great obsessions, fanatically devoted to naval aviation at the expense of everything else, was really the story of John Ford, and that assessment rings true. But as a Wayne-O'Hara vehicle, it's their least memorable collaboration because the dramatic weight falls on Wayne's shoulders. O'Hara delivers an excellent performance, but the script gives her limited screen time compared to their other films, and that's what keeps this one at the bottom. Turner Classic Movies calls it one of Ford's most personal and least appreciated movies, which captures both its strengths and weaknesses. Number 4. Rio Grande. At number 4 we have the film that started it all, Rio Grande. Remember that deal Ford made with Herbert Yates? This was it, the film Ford had to prove could make money with Wayne and O'Hara before Yates would greenlight The Quiet Man. November 15, 1950 brought the release after a premiere November 1st in San Antonio, Texas, and Rio Grande completed Ford's cavalry trilogy after Fort Apache and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. The plot is pure Ford territory. Lieutenant Colonel Kirby York, played by Duke, commands a cavalry regiment in 1879 on the Texas frontier defending settlers against Apache raids. Enter Maureen as Kathleen, York's estranged wife who arrives after 15 years apart, and the reason for their separation cuts deep. During the Civil War, York burned her family's plantation under orders, and she's come to buy their underage son's discharge from the army. Their slow reconciliation forms the emotional heart, while York receives secret orders from General Sheridan to pursue Apaches across the forbidden Mexican border. Ben Johnson plays Trooper Travis Tyree in a stellar supporting cast. Claude Jarman Jr. plays Jeff York, their estranged son, and Victor McLaglen returns as Sergeant Major Quinn Cannon. The Sons of the Pioneers appear as regimental musicians, and if you watch carefully you'll spot an uncredited 11-year-old Patrick Wayne making his screen debut. Ford shot this film in just 32 days during June and July of 1950 in Moab and Monument Valley, Utah, working with a budget of approximately $1.2 million. To save money, Ford chose Moab over his preferred Monument Valley, shot in black and white instead of Technicolor, and Duke surrendered his 10% profit share to make the numbers work. Here's a detail you'll appreciate. Ford forbade actors from washing their cavalry uniforms to maintain authenticity, and O'Hara recalled the heat was so brutal the crew dug pits under tarps for shade. Ben Johnson's spectacular Roman riding stunt, where he stands atop 2 galloping horses simultaneously, took 3 weeks to master. Approximately $2.25 million came in from domestic release, yielding a net profit of $215,634. Not a massive hit, but profitable enough to satisfy Yates. The New York Times called it a familiar story, traveling a well-rutted road, but praised the horsemanship, while Variety called it big brawling mass action clashes, mixed together with a substantial portion of good, honest sentiment. Modern audiences on Rotten Tomatoes give it 75%, and IMDb scores it 7.0 out of 10. Film historian Gary Wills called it the most beautifully filmed of Ford's cavalry trilogy, though most critics consider it the weakest of the 3 overall when judging the complete package. Here's why it matters beyond its artistic merit. Filming coincided exactly with the Korean War's outbreak on June 25, 1950, and the film's central tension about frustration at being forbidden to pursue enemies across an international border resonated powerfully with audiences by November. Joseph McBride called it an early warning allegory of the Korean War. But most importantly, Rio Grande proved Wayne and O'Hara's viability as a screen couple. If you love their partnership as much as I do, hit that subscribe button because we're about to count down their 3 greatest films. Number 3. Big Jake. At number 3 we have their final ride together, Big Jake. May 26, 1971 brought this Batjack Productions film to theaters, and it found Duke at 63 years old with his gravelly voice betraying the lung cancer surgery he'd endured back in September of '64. The film takes place in 1909, deliberately chosen as a transition era where automobiles and motorcycles appear alongside horses. The plot follows classic rescue western structure. The Fane gang attacks the McCandles ranch, kills 10 workers, and kidnaps Jake's 8-year-old grandson for a $1 million ransom. Martha McCandles, played by Maureen, sends for her estranged husband Jacob Big Jake McCandles, a legendary gunfighter most people believe is dead, and Jake arrives with his faithful dog, actually 2 collies named Laddie and Silver, setting out to rescue the boy the old-fashioned way on horseback, while his sons follow with Texas Rangers in newfangled automobiles. The running gag throughout has people telling Jake, "I thought you were dead," and he replies, "Not hardly." Richard Boone plays villain John Fane while Patrick Wayne plays James McCandles, and Christopher Mitchum, Robert Mitchum's son, plays Michael McCandles. Duke's youngest son Ethan Wayne plays Little Jake, the kidnapped grandson. Director George Sherman, Wayne's friend since their 30s Republic Pictures B-Westerns, was aging and struggling with the demanding Mexican locations during filming in October through December of 1970, and this was Sherman's final film in a career spanning over 30 years. $4.8 million went into the budget, and box office brought in $7.5 million domestically. Partly owing to this success, Wayne was number 1 at the US box office for the final time in 1971. Critics gave it decent marks across the board. The New York Times encouraged audiences to stick it out to the exciting climax. Gene Siskel gave it 2 out of 4 stars, noting unusual violence for a Wayne film, and Rotten Tomatoes today scores it 75% with an audience score of 85%. IMDb gives it 7.1 out of 10. So why does it rank only number 3 despite solid reviews and strong box office? Here's the hard truth. Maureen O'Hara appears primarily in the opening and closing scenes, with roughly 10 minutes of screen time, and she's billed last in both opening and closing credits. O'Hara wrote in her 2004 memoir that she wasn't crazy about the small marginal part, but it was Duke, so I agreed to do it, and she added that she wasn't pleased when some of her shots with Wayne were cut due to the film's excessive length. This is a very good John Wayne Western, make no mistake about it. But as a Wayne O'Hara film, it's incomplete because their chemistry was the partnership's signature, and here we only get glimpses of it. The dog Laddie won the Patsy Award, Performing Animal Top Star of the Year, which tells you where the film's heart truly lay. After Big Jake, O'Hara retired from film, disapproving of Hollywood's turn toward what she called dirty pictures, and she wouldn't return until Only the Lonely in 1991, a 20-year absence from the screen. Number 2. McLintock. Coming in at number 2 is their biggest commercial smash and most controversial legacy, McLintock. November 13, 1963 brought this Batjack Productions film to theaters, and you'll notice this one was not directed by John Ford. Andrew V. McLaglen, son of actor Victor McLaglen, took the helm while Duke's eldest son Michael Wayne served as producer in his first film in that role. Duke himself developed the story to express his views on Native American representation in westerns, marital dynamics, and political corruption. Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew gets a loose frontier adaptation in the plot, as cattle baron G.W. McLintock rules a town named after him. His estranged wife, Catherine, played by Maureen, returns seeking divorce and custody of their daughter Becky, and the film interweaves their marital battle with a subplot about Comanche rights, corrupt Indian agents, and a younger romance between Dev and Becky that mirrors the senior couple. $3.5 to $4 million went into the budget according to Michael Wayne's own estimate to the Los Angeles Times, and they filmed it spring of '63 at Old Tucson Studios and locations near Nogales and Patagonia, Arizona. Yvonne DiCarlo got billed as special guest star playing Louise Warren in a supporting cast that included Patrick Wayne as Dev Warren, Stephanie Powers as Becky McLintock, Jerry Van Dyke, Chill Wills, Edgar Buchanan, Bruce Cabot, and many others. Duke's daughter Isa plays Alice Warren. Now here's where we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the spanking scenes that have made this film so controversial. The film features 2 infamous moments, Dev spanking Becky with a coal shovel, followed by McLintock chasing Catherine through town in her undergarments, before publicly spanking her to the cheers of townspeople. O'Hara confirmed in the DVD featurette, "He really spanked me. My bottom was black and blue for weeks." She also described the massive mudslide brawl scene as a miserable time while recovering from stomach surgery. These scenes have become a flashpoint for modern gender politics debate, and Apple TV's description calls the climactic spanking a notorious cinematic moment fitting within the problematic ideology of the larger Western genre. Critics have called it misogynistic, but here's the irony multiple scholars have noted. Wayne's stated intention was actually to criticize marital abuse, not celebrate it, and the film also contains surprisingly progressive Native American representation, including Davy Elk's powerful monologue about being reduced to his ethnicity. Critics in '63 were lukewarm at best. Bosley Crowther in the New York Times praised the opulent scenery but criticized McLaglen's direction. Good intentions, when the task at hand is as difficult as lusty farce, are not enough. Daily Variety called it a cinematic fricassee of leftovers, but audiences loved it and showed up in droves. $14.5 million came from North American release, making it their most commercially successful collaboration by far, and one of Wayne's biggest '60s hits. Rotten Tomatoes today scores it 50% from critics but 84% from over 10,000 audience ratings, and IMDb gives it 7.1 out of 10. That gap between critical and audience scores tells the whole story about this film's legacy. Here's another detail that keeps this film in circulation. Batjack Productions failed to renew the copyright, which expired in 1991, and the film entered the public domain, now freely available on dozens of streaming platforms, though the music score remains under copyright. So why does McLintock rank number 2 instead of number 1, despite being their biggest hit? Because box office success and cultural impact don't always equal artistic achievement, and their number 1 film changed cinema history. Number 1. The Quiet Man. The number 1 Wayne O'Hara film isn't just their greatest collaboration, it's one of the finest films either star ever made, The Quiet Man. September 14, 1952 brought the release, with premieres in London and Dublin on June 6, and this was the film John Ford spent 15 years fighting to make. Republic Pictures told him it would never earn a penny, and it only happened because Ford agreed to make Rio Grande first. Duke plays Sean Thornton, a retired American boxer returning to his Irish birthplace of Innisfree to buy his family's cottage and live in peace. But he's carrying a dark secret. He killed a man in the ring. Mary-Kate Danaher, played by Maureen, captures his heart instantly, but her bullying brother Red Will, played by Victor McLaglen, refuses consent for courtship. After the village schemes to overcome Will's objections, Sean and Mary-Kate marry. But Will withholds her £350 dowry, and for Mary-Kate, this isn't about money at all. It's about dignity, identity, and self-respect, concepts Sean doesn't understand, which leads Mary-Kate to refuse to consummate the marriage. The crisis builds to one of cinema's most famous sequences, Sean dragging Mary-Kate 5 miles across the countryside to confront Will, the couple burning the dowry money together, and then comes the legendary Donnybrook, a miles-long semi-comic fistfight between Sean and Will that pauses mid-stream for a drink at the pub. Barry Fitzgerald as matchmaker Micheline Oje Flynn anchors a magnificent supporting cast that included Ward Bond as Father Peter Lonergan, Mildred Natwick as Widow Tulane, Arthur Shields as Reverend Playfair, who was Barry Fitzgerald's real brother, and Charles B. Fitzsimmons as Hugh Forbes, who was Maureen O'Hara's real brother. Duke's 4 children appear in the horse race scene. Ford insisted on Technicolor over Republic's cheaper TrueColor process despite the added cost, and the budget reached $1.75 million. When Herbert Yates demanded Ford cut 9 minutes to reach a 120-minute runtime, Ford screened the film and stopped it at exactly 120 minutes, right before the climactic fight began, and in the deafening silence, Yates relented. Filming commenced June 7, 1951 in Ireland, with approximately 8 weeks on location followed by studio work at Republic's Burbank lot. They shot in Cong County, Mayo for the main village, used Ashford Castle as production headquarters, filmed at Lettergesh Beach in Connemara for the horse race, and used Ballyglunin railway station near Tuam as Castletown station. Ford put real animal dung in the fields, and as O'Hara recalled, he made sure I was covered in it by the end of the day. $3.8 million came from the first year of release, making it a top 10 hit of 1952 and Republic Pictures' biggest moneymaker ever. The Academy Awards recognized its brilliance with 2 wins for Best Director, Ford's record 4th and final Oscar, and Best Cinematography in Color for Winton C. Hoke and Archie Stout. 5 additional nominations came, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for McLaglen, and Best Screenplay, Directors Guild Award, Writers Guild Award for Best American Comedy, National Board of Review Best Film, and multiple Venice Film Festival awards followed, and in 2013 it was selected for the National Film Registry. A.H. Weiler in the New York Times called it as darlin' a picture as we've seen this year, while the Washington Post called it a complete Jim dandy. Rotten Tomatoes today scores it 91% from critics and 91% from audiences, and IMDb gives it 7.7 out of 10. But here's what makes The Quiet Man truly unforgettable, the final shot that nobody can explain. Sean and Mary-Kate stand together after all the conflict has resolved. Maureen leans in and whispers something in Duke's ear, and you can see him visibly react, genuinely shocked. What did she say? Nobody knows, because both stars took that secret to their graves, and it's become cinema's greatest unsolved mystery. The cultural impact continues 7 decades later as the film transformed Cong County, Mayo into a global tourist destination. Today the village features the Quiet Man Cottage Museum, Pat Cohen's Bar, which hosts daily screenings, guided walking tours, an annual Quiet Man Festival, and a commemorative statue of Wayne and O'Hara. Steven Spielberg featured the storm kiss scene on a television in E.T. the Extraterrestrial in '82, and Martin Scorsese wrote in his 2015 tribute to O'Hara, "The image that always comes to mind is that extraordinary first kiss in the deserted house, the boldness of the gesture, the wind, the blazing color, the surge of attraction." O'Hara's family stated she listened to music from The Quiet Man during her final hours before her death in 2015. O'Hara called it her favorite film. "I loved Mary-Kate Danaher. I loved the hell and fire in her." This is why The Quiet Man ranks #1, not just as their most successful film artistically and commercially, but as the reason their partnership exists at all. Without Ford's determination to make this silly little Irish story, there is no Rio Grande deal, no McClintock, no Big Jake, no Wings of Eagles, and this film is the foundation for everything that followed. The friendship beyond the films. But ranking these 5 films only tells half the story, because what made the Wayne-O'Hara partnership truly special wasn't what happened on camera, it was what existed between them off-screen. Duke famously said, "There's only one woman who has been my friend over the years, and by that I mean a real friend, like a man would be. She's big, lusty, absolutely marvelous, definitely my kind of woman. She's a great guy. I've had many friends, and I prefer the company of men. Except for Maureen O'Hara." Maureen reciprocated in her own words. "I was tough, I was tall, I was strong, I didn't take any nonsense from anybody. He was tough, he was tall, he was strong, and he didn't take any nonsense from anybody. As a man and a human being, I adored him." Duke's children called her Auntie Maureen, and she kept a wing in her Caribbean home called the John Wayne Wing because he stayed there when visiting. When Duke was dying of stomach cancer in June of '79, Maureen visited him at UCLA Medical Center, devastated by his skeletal appearance, but putting on what she called a cheerful Irish act for 3 days. Duke told her, "Maureen, why did you and I have such lousy luck?" She responded, "Mileage never hurt a Rolls Royce. We're a couple of Rolls Royces." His last words to her, "That's a gorgeous coat, it looks beautiful on you." Weeks earlier, on May 21, 1979, O'Hara had testified before Congress to advocate for Wayne's Congressional Gold Medal, and with no prepared statement after a canceled flight, she spoke from the heart. "I beg you to strike a medal for Duke, to order the president to strike it, and I feel that the medal should say just one thing: John Wayne, American." The medal was minted with exactly that inscription. Duke died June 11, 1979, and O'Hara's grandson later revealed, "That's the only time I had ever seen my grandmother cry. She didn't really cry when her husband died, but when Duke died, she cried." So there you have it. 5 films ranked from The Wings of Eagles to The Quiet Man. From the forgotten biography to the masterpiece that almost never got made. From the deal that launched a partnership to the film that defined it forever. What makes the Wayne O'Hara collaboration exceptional isn't just the individual quality of these films, it's the consistency of their dynamic across radically different genres and 2 decades of changing Hollywood. O'Hara matches Wayne blow for blow in every film, never playing the wilting damsel. Duke himself acknowledged this in a 1971 interview, calling her "my fighting partner" rather than his love interest, and when a reporter noted she always ended up looking beautiful despite the physical comedy, Wayne replied, "There's no way to make her not beautiful, we tried that." The Quiet Man stands alone as a masterpiece among the 5 films, while McLintock was their commercial juggernaut that remains polarizing. Rio Grande serves as both the essential origin story and the weakest Ford cavalry entry. Big Jake provided a bittersweet farewell with O'Hara reduced to a cameo, and The Wings of Eagles contains Ford's most personal filmmaking and Wayne's most underrated dramatic performance, but remains their least known collaboration. Their story didn't end on screen, but at Duke's hospital bedside with those final words about a gorgeous coat, and when Maureen O'Hara died on October 24, 2015 at age 95, her family reported that she passed peacefully, surrounded by loved ones, listening to the music from The Quiet Man. Some partnerships are bigger than any single film, and John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara proved that 5 times over. If you love classic Hollywood as much as we do us a favor, hit that like button, leave a comment telling us which of these 5 films is your favorite, and subscribe to this channel so you never miss another deep dive into the golden age of cinema. Because there are more stories like this one waiting to be told, and we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.